Real Solution, Community Solar and Food Gardens. Introduction. What is climate change? Climate change can be both natural and unnatural. Anthropogenic climate change is caused by feedback. It's a response to a forcing agent supplied to the system. Our planet is a robust, complex, and ever-evolving system, yet it is also extremely delicate and at risk of incongruousness. The systems our home thrives on are dependent on balance, and that balance can be easily thrown off and lead to disaster. What we put in the planet, we get back, and this can both be a blessing as well as catastrophic. This feedback can lead to exponential climate change by way of forcing agents at play, such as how we heat our homes, feed ourselves, travel, and play. Positive feedback is any increase in events, such as more heat, wind, wildfire, etc. Negative feedback diminishes the effects on a cycle. This could be lowered temps, less erratic storm patterns, or a rebound to an original state of being, such as rain falling on a wildfire or ice forming in the Arctic instead of melting. Today, I'm going to discuss how we can negatively influence the rising concerns of climate change right here in La Alma Lincoln Park neighborhood. And this is by way of the forcing agents we supply into the system and the resulting feedback. Forcing agents for climate. Like we talked about briefly, this can be a natural thing such as the sun, cloud coverage, debris from a volcano, or the Earth's tilt, or it can be human-induced, like burning fossil fuels, chemical compounds like aerosols, other things that are placed into the atmosphere, depleting land until there is less biodiversity and plant growth. This process is absolutely exponential, and it has an effect on our air quality, rising temperatures, storm patterns, wildfires, cloud quality, etc. There's several things that we can do about this, but what I'm going to focus on today is our energy consumption, number one, as well as our agricultural practices. Our energy consumption is literally through the roof, and it's fossil fuel burning that's really causing a lot of the problems. And then in addition to that, our agricultural practices have been historically unsustainable and have caused a lot of problems. This is a map here of the Denver air quality. If I were to click on this link, it would take me out of the presentation and I wouldn't be able to go back in the same way. So I'm not going to click on it to show current air quality. I know that this morning it was at about 41, which is a good air quality, but typically in the summer it's usually around moderate up to unhealthy for most days, especially in the afternoons. Historical context of the climate in Colorado. So Colorado has actually had quite a very creative history as far as what it's been. It was originally an ocean, actually. A lot of volcanic activity rose the land up to past sea level and also created the Rocky Mountains. With that said, it has gone through several ice ages, and at this point it is now predominantly alpine desert, plateau, as well as Great Plains. In this video here, it goes over a really cool timeline, but it's about 30 minutes, so I won't play it. As far as the La Alma Lincoln neighborhood is concerned, this area in the 1960s and 70s was a big part of the Chicano movement. As far as where we are now, even though a lot of those historic roots are in an amazing movement, with that said, right now we've kind of taken a step back. This neighborhood is very at risk. There's a lot of underrepresented groups that are living in the area. There's also a lot of drug use, a lot of violence. There is a fairly robust homeless community that lives in the area as well. There have recently been a lot of closures to La Alma Lincoln Park, specifically due to rat infestations, drug use, and paraphernalia being left about, as well as a recent fight back in April where a man actually lost his life. As far as temperature change is concerned in the Denver area, Stapleton area is somewhat close to downtown. With that said, you can see in this chart that the trend is definitely going up as far as temperature is concerned. If we go over to Cheeseman Park, which is actually not too far from La Alma Lincoln, the temperature trend is also going up in this area as well. This particular area is slightly closer to the mountains. With that said, there is still an upward trend here. It's kind of in a weird pocket that doesn't see quite as much storm pattern, so I could see why this is not trending up quite so much. But if you were to take all of these numbers together, you're still going to see an upward trend in temperature. The regional environmental influence for this particular area, this is a topographic map of the La Lincoln Park right here in the middle where that star is, and the surrounding areas. And what you can see is that from this chart on the right side, what we're really looking at here is essentially what is called a food desert. And so basically what we've got going on is that this area does not have a whole lot of access to grocery stores. There may be fast food restaurants or places like 7-Elevens, but there are not grocery stores really in this area. With that, most folks who live in this area also do not have access to transportation. And this is not just personal cars. It also, can be considered things like low economic status and no ability to afford public transportation. There is a pretty decent transportation system in this area, but that doesn't mean that folks can always afford to take it. With that said, as far as the affluence in the area, this is not a wealthy area. Most folks here are fairly at risk, and then up here towards where the Pepsi Center is, this is actually a college community, and so the most wealthy kids, even then, are students and don't really have a whole lot of money either. Regional and environmental influence. So this right here is actually talking more about soil quality. So most of Colorado, at least on the east side in the plains, has been used historically for farming practices. With that said, our soil depletion levels are actually really quite high. This is for Adams County and parts of Adams and Denver counties. With that, looking at the OM depletion, it's moderately high. And this is a general survey of a lot of different soils within these two counties. The socioeconomic impact of the type of project that I'm talking about is actually really quite profound. This is a picture here of a solar panel and gardening bed sustainable living project in Tampa Bay. This is a little bit different than what I'm talking about, but the benefits are still kind of the same. So essentially what I'm talking about is purchasing large plots of land and placing solar farms on them. There are a couple of companies in the state of Colorado and nationwide right now. This is actually kind of a growing trend that rent out large plots of land where they place solar panels and essentially farm solar energy. This goes back to whatever energy company, in Colorado's case would be Xcel Energy, and it feeds it back into the grid. And so it's offsetting our fossil fuel burnings. With that said, in addition to this project, I'd also like to place a community garden in the La Alma Lincoln Park neighborhood. Community gardens have an amazing impact on the area that they are placed in. And I'll talk about that here for just a little bit. So possible mitigation and geoengineering actions for a project like this. So this is a picture of it's essentially like a raised solar panel farming project where they're also planting vegetables underneath. And so basically what's going on here is that they're trying to reconstitute the soil and make it viable for farming again while also using solar panels. And so this type of idea is currently being done, and folks are seeing really amazing results from these types of projects. Future outlook for the area. So this is a before and after of a project in New York City. They went in and put in some community gardens, and as you can tell, it definitely beautifies the area and it looks much nicer. But with that said, not only does it make the area look beautiful, but it also makes the area safer, and I'll talk about that briefly. So supporting community gardening and basically, giving folks the opportunity to contribute to something that is going to yield benefits for their community makes things really change for them. A lot of folks that did this project that was essentially turned into a study, it's called What Gardens Grow: Outcomes from Home and Community Gardens, supported by community-based food justice organizations. It looked over a lot of different cases, and it's a large case study of what happened to folks when they participated in these types of things. Most folks had statements about improved health, having access to more quality food. They also had access to cultural services, and then also experienced healing and transformation within their own lives. If you look at this table, it also talks about folks, teaching their kids how to garden and just generally like feeling safer in their communities because there was more of a presence. So the timeline for something like this is going to take a while. For the solar farm itself, we're looking at least 4 years. With that said, I'm talking about initial fundraising, searching for land, purchasing land, and then actually installing the farm. And going from there, we would need to purchase land that is linked up to the grid. Currently, I'm looking in Weld County. There are 35-acre plots of land for around $100,000 to $150,000. For the community garden, we're looking at less time, which is great because this means that folks will have access to food sooner. Initial fundraising, I'm thinking this will probably take about a year, but about 2 years until our first season where we can plant our first round of food. Summary and conclusions for something like this. It's hard to say what the potential benefits are because it is an exponential type of thing, just the same as climate change is. I think that really the focus is that we're reconnecting community to cultural roots through food. We are taking useless land and effectively like reconstituting the soil and creating sustainable energy sources. We're building equity through the potential for having these families even have access to land ownership through something like this. We're looking at crime reduction and then access to sustainable energy that for an area that is greatly affected by severe heat and cold. Talking about job creation as well as creation of really giving communities what they need and less outsourcing for them. This is an investment and it's a solution through, contribution and dividends paid back into the community, through multiple forms. And so it's not just about the community though either, which is something to remember. This is also about, giving back to our planet and offsetting some of the, intense fossil fuel burning that we've been doing, as well as, historically unfit and unsustainable garden or agricultural practices. Thank you so much.